Commissioners in Ottawa County need to find a new administrator. They fired John Gibbs last night. He had been on administrative leave since last week. Nothing relating to Gibbs was on the agenda for that meeting, but the board chair, Joe Moss, initiated a motion to terminate Gibbs, and 9 other commissioners agreed. The only one who did not was Doug Zylstra, the only Democrat on the board. The county will post his job immediately. Commissioners shared a letter that lists several complaints against Gibbs. He was not at the meeting last night, but we do have him on with us now this morning. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you.
So, was this a surprise to you?
Not really. You know, this has been brewing, unfortunately, for a few weeks. And the timeline here is basically starting last year. I began pointing out some serious issues with the governance of the county to the commissioners, especially regarding the legal counsel that they picked for the county. We were having some serious issues, so I wrote them a long letter, a very professional letter saying we've got problems. They didn't like that very much, and so things started to get icy. Additionally, we all know about the $4 million that they offered to the health officer, which they did in fact offer. The judges confirmed that. And I said that that's a very bad move for the county and a bad move for the taxpayers. They did not like that very much. And so then I think my head was put on the chopping block at that time. I told them that they have no cause to fire me whatsoever. And after that, they came up with these allegations that you mentioned. And I responded to those allegations point by point. They are false and defamatory. So we have that out there. And that's where we are right now. I think going forward, there's a very strong case that wrongdoing was done here and that will be pursued aggressively.
Did you have any concerns about the county and the commissioners as you came into this position a year ago?
No, I was actually very excited. I really liked what the commissioners stood for. I liked what they campaigned on. I liked the vision that they had. But, you know, as the weeks went by and as the months went by, I realized we had serious problems. I have years of experience working in the government. I worked in the Trump administration under Dr. Ben Carson. I know all this stuff's supposed to work. And I tried to bring that to the table, but, you know, I was always met with deaf ears. I was always met with derision when I tried to point out serious problems that were there. So over time, it really soured, and I realized that although they had the right ideas, they really don't know how to govern the county, and they don't really understand how government works, and don't really have the right temperament to lead Ottawa County, which is very unfortunate.
One reason I ask that is because a little more than a year ago, in a surprise move that wasn't on the agenda, those same commissioners fired John Shea, and in the same meeting put you into place as county administrator. Should that have been a red flag?
I don't think so. You know, I do think that there were probably some issues before, especially with the way that COVID was handled. I think a lot of people were unhappy with the response there. And I think there was a certain status quo that had settled into place that did need to be shaken up a little bit. So I don't think that in and of itself was a problem. The issue is that when the new folks came in, they didn't really know what they were doing, as it turned out. So you went from one situation where you had a stale status quo that needed to be changed to a new situation where you had people with the right ideas, but they really do not know how to govern at all. That's why I was brought in. I do know how to govern. I do have that background and experience. But unfortunately, if you know, they're not willing to listen or I'm not willing to contribute, then it's not going to do any good. So I do think it was a good move to shake things up a bit. But I think, unfortunately, folks in there now really have proven to be disappointing to all the people that voted for them and hope that they would make positive change.
What are your issues with the Coleman Legal Group? What do you think is not being handled correctly that's putting the county in a bad spot?
Look, I think that Dave Coleman does excellent work in this area in terms of First Amendment, defending schools, defending restaurants that were shut down during COVID, et cetera. I think he does great work there. But municipal law is totally different. It's a very different beast. Municipal law, you're dealing with contracts, you're dealing with local governments, you're dealing with all kinds of issues that are very different than what the Coleman Group has had in its background. And so we were seeing huge backlogs with response time. People from the county, employees would email legal and not get any response. I would ask questions and not be able to get any answers. It got to the point where I knew if I would contact them, I would never get a response. And this is a really serious issue because if I'm looking at a policy change or looking at a contract for procurement, I need a legal answer on that. I need it pretty quickly, but I wasn't getting those at all. And it became to the point where it was actually a serious problem for the operation of the county. And I had to point that out. That's my job. If there's an issue with the function of the county, I was hired to point that out to the commissioner so we could take action. And when I did point that out, instead of fixing the problem and coming up with an action plan, they instead attacked me and got mad because the Colemans are their friends. And again, nothing personal whatsoever against Coleman Legal Group. This is a purely professional issue, and they don't have the background and experience in municipal law to work in the county effectively, and I had to point that out.
One last question. It has to do with your offer to resign that your lawyer sent a couple weeks ago. that you would resign for $630,000. Your employment contract says that if they were to terminate you without cause, you would get a lump sum for about $160,000. Why would you offer to resign and expect them to pay you more than 3 times that amount?
The number we gave was the total value of my contract because, as you know, my contract is 3 years. And so that's the 3-year value of my contract. I think that's a very fair number, given what I've endured and the attacks that I faced, and to keep things positive going forward. That's why I made that offer to them. That would have been a way to do this amicably. But what you see with the board here, and not just with me, but with everything they're doing, is there's a very strong spirit of vindictiveness and revenge and attacking people. It's very unhealthy, and it causes constant scandal, and it causes constant lawsuits. And so they're really getting themselves to a lot of trouble by handling things in a spirit of conflict instead of handling things amicably as I proposed to them.
So you're planning to fight this?
Absolutely.
Okay. John Gibbs, the county administrator who was fired last night, thank you for joining us this morning to share your thoughts and your next steps here with this situation.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.